Islam inherently is about peace. It is about peace. But
to say Islam is a religion of peace is as ridiculous as saying it is a religion of violence. Neither is true. It is a convoluted...
But you just said it is a religion of violence.
There is violence within it, and there is some peaceful statements within it. But the question comes back again to why Muslims cannot get through the stage that Christianity and Judaism went through and say, if it says slay the infidel wherever you find him, we don't... It's not just that we won't do it, which is why most Muslims, as you say, are entirely peaceable. They don't follow the scripture's injunction in its place. It's that they say, not only are we not going to do that, but it would be wrong if we were to, and that verse must go. We must drop that verse.
We already have that system. We already have.
This is the reason why. This is the reason why. This is the reason why we still do not have a mainstream school of Islam in the world that will drop the verses which permit the murder of those who leave Islam.
Douglas Murray got into a heated debate with an imam about whether Islam is a religion of peace or not. By the end of it, the imam was left absolutely stunned. He tried to sidestep, but Douglas didn't allow that, and he continued to smash the crowd with even more harsh facts about Islam. Let's watch together how all of this unfolded, starting with the moderator reading some verses from the Quran.
I will cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve. Therefore, strike off their heads and strike off every fingertip of them. I mean, it's not love thy neighbour, is it?
No, I mean, that particular verse isn't, but that's not a general Islamic quote. That's a specific quote to a specific point in a specific time in a specific batch.
Yeah, I guess that's true indeed.
So Muslims were outcast, exiled, left their homes for 9 years, persecuted for 9 years, found sanctuary in a new homeland, were migrated, an exodus from Mecca, migrated. Still the enemies of Islam came to them and wanted to wipe them out. At that point, there is a point in Islam. Islam is not a pacifist religion by any stretch, I agree. But there's a point. You continue to turn the other cheek. Yes, it's a continuation of the same message that Jesus brought. Turn the other cheek up to a point.
Up to a point, yes.
Up to a point. You cannot just stand by and watch evil spread throughout the land and do nothing about it.
Okay, that sounds plausible. But let's see how Douglas is going to respond to that.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big differences, isn't it, between Islam and Christianity? I mean, Christ says, you know, he's asked how many times do I forgive my brother, and he says 7 times, 70 times 7, an infinite number of times. We have to address, I have to say, it's always a very difficult question. It's always a difficult question to address this one.
I also quote from the Bible where Jesus says, I have come not to spread peace, but I have come to bring the sword.
There is
I've
one
come to turn brother against the father.
Yes, there is one.
I don't want to turn this into relation about
okay, in a minute,
Christian and Islam.
There is indeed a verse in the New Testament that says that. The thing is that we have to address at some point, it's always very awkward to do so, we have to address the nature of the inventors of these religions. Jesus, when he invents Christianity, says all sorts of peaceable things, and on that occasion says, yes, I've come to bring a sword. But Muhammad, when he invented Islam, also gave an example to Muslims. Now, we're very fortunate, of course, that most Muslims don't follow that example, or are unaware of that example. But the fact is that Muhammad himself was a warrior. He beheaded prisoners. He himself was a very violent man.
You can't deny that. Jesus was a teacher.
We can't... I would say, and many people who are Muslims, and many of my Muslim friends and colleagues and so on, realize that, you know, Islam gives you, like all religions, a guide to life. But we cannot ignore the violence of Islam's tenets, of the faith itself. When Muhammad very early on in his career... I
follow the example of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, myself, in a day-to-day life. I don't go around beheading people. No. I do that because the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, acted in a certain way. I give charity. I give talk to my neighbours. I reach out my hand to the elderly. I reach out my hand to the poor.
I'm not saying you don't. I'm just saying that what I'm saying is that we cannot. We can recognise the good things within Islam, the peaceable things in Islam. We cannot pretend that the verses that are violent and the violent doings of Muhammad did not occur.
Douglas really out here bringing people back down to earth with some brutal facts. That man tried to say that we can just ignore the violent verses, and it's true, we can. But the problem is that a significant number of Muslims can't, and that's the problem here. Now let's take a look at the Imam challenging Douglas head-on.
And I totally disagree with Douglas when he says what he said about the blessed messenger Muhammad. He was a man of peace. 1 billion people or more follow his example. We are what we are because of
battles, though, didn't he?
Of course. Which leader of any community that is a growing community, that is a community under attack from time to time, will not have to resort to a military campaign? Why do we not look at the fact that the verses of the Quran which are being misused by misguided Muslims, and we don't deny that, They are Muslims, just as they are. We've had Christian people, we've had Jewish people, we've had all kinds of people who have misused their scripture to justify something. We need to shift the discussion to say...
Can I ask you one thing?
What is... If I can just finish this point, Nikki. Is it really the religion, or is it the people who follow those religions who have political motives, or they have criminal intentions?
Okay, now it's time to listen to Douglas's silence-inducing response. Buckle up, for what's about to come is a beatdown of epic proportions.
It's a very specific problem that Islam has uniquely among the three monotheists.
Muslims might
which
have.
is that Islam continues to find it very hard to drop, I've mentioned this in this program before, it finds it very hard to drop the violent verses because Muslims are still told by their leaders that they have to drop.
They are told to love thy neighbor.
The Quran itself was dictated direct to Muhammad, therefore you can't drop the verses and so on. Now, Christians and Jews have managed to get around this. When they have a violent verse in their scriptures, they say, well, yes, but it's all open to interpretation. The problem for Muslims is that still in the mainstream, in mainstream scholarship, mainstream Islam, if you say that verse in the Quran is there, I admit it's there, but it's rubbish, I'm not going to believe it, I'll throw that one out, you're declared an apostate by your fellow Muslims.
Christina.
And rightly so.
Christina, 1 second. Christina.
What I'd like to know is where was Ibrahim when 9/11 happened? Because right after 9/11, what Islam needed were Muslim leaders who said, that is awful.
And we did that. We did that.
What we got instead was lots of flashy pictures from around the globe, from around the Muslim countries, with cheering.
Take a look at how many terror attacks there are only in Iraq and Israel compared to the whole of Europe. It is no secret that Islam isn't known for solving its problems peacefully. And even though it is not the Quran's fault, because the Bible also has plenty of nasty stuff, Muslims are still caught into this culture that has a violent undertone colored by their unsolved history and contemporary political issues. This is the point Douglas was trying to make. Here's a man adding on to that another dramatic point.
But with Islamic extremism, you've got several problems. It's not just terrorism. You've got the reaction to the Danish cartoons, which then called for murder. You've got, even out of the context of Iraq and Afghanistan, you had leading people, including in the Muslim Council of Britain, who I haven't heard apologise for this, burning books.
Yeah.
You have Sharia law. I mean, just looking at women being flogged for wearing trousers. So there is a particular problem of Islamic extremism that doesn't exist today in other extremist religions.
Is that something inherent in the faith that leads to that violence?
Not at all. I think we've just seen it there, that secularists in this country don't know much about secularism. Stalin absolutely consistently focused on religious communities throughout the socialist republics.
Not in the name of atheism.
In the name of atheism, no. as a contradiction to the revolution.
Things are about to heat up. We'll let this man finish his point, and then we'll watch Douglas's stump everything he said.
But the most important thing in this country is if we treat Muslims and other minorities like dogs, right, as we used to say, no dogs, no Irishmen, as on Jersey they say, no Poles, no Portuguese today, and then you get some kind of reaction of alienation, marginalisation, and a reading of a text, which I read it and say...
So it's our fault?
Yeah, well, because if I read a text and it talks about me being the outcast and being treated like a dog and treating like an infidel,
but Muslims
then
in
of
this
course
country
it's
are not treated like
radicalising
dogs.
me.
Wait a second, Douglas, one second.
But Muslims are not treated like dogs. There are no discriminatory measures in this country, and quite rightly not. Whatever you believe in your heart, whatever religion you want to believe in, I think they're ridiculous myself, but I think you can believe what you like, and no one's trying to stop you believing what you like. To pretend that Muslims are in any way sort of prejudiced against.
No lies allowed here, now watch this.
But for those of us who are not Muslims, what we notice is too many Muslims, as has been mentioned already, who say, who will riot in the streets and protest about somebody when they draw a cartoon of Muhammad, but when somebody called Muhammad Atta flies a plane into a tower and kills thousands of people, they remain silent. They find the use of their prophet's image in a drawing offensive, but not somebody called after their prophet doing a violent action.
That was tough to listen to. I don't think they are going to be able to come back from that, after Douglas said that there was a guy that said that all communities have a dark side, including the British. Yes, as if there is a moral equivalency between the most tolerant society in the world and the most intolerant society in the world. Now, let's listen to the Imam trying to downplay the severity of the issue right before getting absolutely owned by Douglas.
The verses of the Quran, which people choose to justify their violent behavior, are cut out and used just as segments. The very verses that you make reference to are followed by certain verses that talk about In fact, when the Muslims picked up arms, it was if you look at the hermeneutics of the verses, the Muslims are given permission to pick up arms in defense. The verses also continue to say, if the enemy offers a hand of peace, you make peace. Islam inherently is about peace. It is about peace. But Muslims have misused the religion, and I'll be the first to condemn them. Violence, extremism has no place in Islam, has no place in anywhere in the world.
That sounds plausible, but Douglas has something to say about this.
To say Islam is a religion of peace is as ridiculous as saying it is a religion of violence. Neither is true. It is a convoluted.
But you just said it is a religion of violence.
There is violence within it, and there is some peaceful statements within it. But the question comes back again to why Muslims cannot get through the stage that Christianity and Judaism went through and say, if it says slay the infidel wherever you find him, we don't. It's not just that we won't do it, which is why most Muslims, as you say, are entirely peaceable. They don't follow the Scripture's injunction in its place. It's that they say not only are we not going to do that, but it would be wrong if we were to, and that verse must go. We must drop that.
We already have that system. We already have.
This is the reason why. This is the reason why. This is the reason why we still do not have a mainstream school of Islam in the world that will drop the verses which permit the murder of those who leave Islam. We still are waiting for the fatwas from the mainstream schools which are going to say, if you apostatize from Islam, no, you should not be killed.
That was just downright brutal. And this is the grim reality about Islam. History tells us again and again that the peeps that try to positively reinterpret the Quran always get killed by the fundamentalists that will just never let go. Just like it happened with Mansour al-Hallaj, Farag Foda, and Naguib Mahfouz, just to name a few. Douglas knows this, but people ignore it, which is why he's passionate about opposing the reckless acceptance of Islamic culture. Now let's listen to a few more hard-hitting points from other participants.
That any religious text, whether be it Christian, Muslim, whatever, there are millions of interpretations, and the problem is not Islam specifically, the problem is religion, because if you say to me that you're a big fan... if you say to me, Nicky, that you're a big fan of David Cameron's ideas, I can say to you, if I choose to, well, I think you're an idiot, I think his ideas are ridiculous. But if you say to me, I'm a big fan of the ideas of the Prophet Muhammad, and I say, well, I think you're an idiot and his ideas are ridiculous, that's an outrageous and controversial statement. We have to be allowed to question these things, and unfortunately, the way that religion works is you're not allowed to question these things, you have to believe it on faith. And that is what it's dangerous.
In Islam...
In actual fact, I have had this checked, and the commentaries and the manuals all agree that the jihad texts are still very much in force, and the peaceable verses have been abrogated. Yes. That is the problem with Islam. It does actually advocate violence. And I think we can look around the world and we can see many, many examples of where Islam has been violent.
It has been for quite a bit, hasn't it?
If we wanted to take stuff from the Bible, the Old Testament, we could, go and destroy the world on that basis. What is the difference?
The difference is that the Old Testament applied in that particular time. There were injunctions for particular places and particular people who were doing child sacrifice and whose religion was prostitution. God told the Jews to wipe them out. There was a good reason for that. He's God, he has the right to do that. Okay. The difference with Islam is it's supposed to be immutable, and this is why they cannot issue a fatwa to say all the violent verses have been...
There's a point that I find quite amusing. There are some leftists that are trying to accuse white people of being responsible for the violence of Islam because they always intervened in their territory. I mean, that's just outright next-level genius of cause and effect. Because yes, obviously all Islam's problems and conflicts would have instantly disappeared if white people just didn't exist. Surely. In any case, across history, colonization helped the Middle East way more than it hurt it.
Dear Muslims, the world is scared of us. The world is laughing at us. The world is worried about us. And there are legitimate reasons for their worry that we cannot just deny. It is time to flush the word Islamophobia down the toilet and start looking in the mirror and ask ourselves, how did we get here? How come the biggest and most dangerous thriving terrorist organization in the world are Muslim? How come terrorists successfully use Islam to mobilize more terrorists? What is the problem with our leaders, our books, our imams, and our religion? Why do we keep repeating these Stone Age traditions that have failed us and continue to fail us? The world has left us behind. The kuffar that our imams and books tell us to hate have traveled to the future, while we're still stuck in the Middle Ages, reading stories about Muhammad and his flying horse. You're watching this on your phone or your computer or tablet. created by these kuffars. The same kuffar that we hate so much.
This was just so refreshing to watch. I feel bad because he's a good man, but you can't avoid the truth.
The same kuffar that we hate so much have created most of the medicines that we use today. Medicine that our religion's crystal ball failed to bring about. The kuffar have moved forward and traveled into space. Meanwhile, we're stuck on Earth in the Middle Ages, going to our poisonous mosques every Friday, reciting the same chapters and the same stories of Prophet Muhammad. Why haven't all of these books and teachings led us to science and technology and medicine? We're stuck debating which sect is correct, which interpretation is correct, who is the kafir and who is the real Muslim. How can we convince the kuffar to become Muslims? Why on earth would anybody want to be Muslim today? They're all scared of us. They're all laughing at us. They're all worried about us. Delete Israel and the West from the world and we would still be as ignorant as we are, and we would still be stabbing each other as we are. Stop blaming them and look at yourselves in the mirror.
Anyway, this was all for today's video. If you want to watch more of Douglas Murray wrecking ignorant activists, then you can click the video on screen, and we'll catch you in the next video. Peace.